I don't know if you guys heard, but Trump announced that the United States wants to cut its military spending in half. Which, look, to me, I'm not terrified by that. I kind of like the idea of taking all that money, I don't know, spending it on healthcare or something else. The only thing I worry about is if, you know, if we cut our military spending and then we don't have resources to send to Ukraine, or, you know, in order to continue to hold a deterrence effect in South Korea, or, you know, enough in order to hold up like good defensive structures in Europe. I mean, if we remove some military bases from the Middle East and retract from areas where people don't want us there, and we're not serving a vital defense role, then it's like, okay, I understand that. We certainly also want our allies to share more of the burden. But if the Chinese are increasing defense spending and the Russians are, and we're cutting it in half, what message does that send? Will that encourage aggression? This would have to be coordinated with the Russians and the Chinese. And so what Trump said is he wants to cut U.S. military spending with the Chinese and Russians. Basically, he says America cuts its military spending from $850 billion to something like $425, something like that, billion. And the Chinese cut their military spending in half, and then the Russians cut their military spending in half. Let me read this from you, to you from Axios. President Trump said Wednesday he's going to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin to discuss slicing all three countries' military budgets in half. Trump is looking to convince these adversaries to cut their defense spending while also getting them to commit to denuclearization, getting rid of atomic weapons. We're all spending a lot of money that we could be spending on other things that are actually, hopefully, much more productive, Trump said from the Oval Office. The president said he's going to meet with China and Russia. And I'm going to say there's no reason for us to be spending almost $1 trillion on the military. Hey, there's a kernel of truth in there. He added, we're going to have them spend a lot less money. We're going to spend a lot less money. And I know they're going to do it. They agreed to it. Trump said he plans to discuss global defense spending with the leaders of the two countries once we straighten it all out in the Middle East and Ukraine. Trump said he spoke to Putin about denuclearization and claimed they both agreed to do it in a very big way. There's no reason for us to be building brand new nuclear weapons. We already have so many, he added. You can destroy the world 50 times over, 100 times over. And here we are building new nuclear weapons. And they're building nuclear weapons. Trump said that if the nuclear weapons were ever used, that's going to be probably oblivion. Man, what a way to put it. The budget for the U.S. Department of Defense for the fiscal year 2025 was $850 billion. Hey, I was right on the money. And included proposals for more than $61 billion for air power, $48 billion for sea power, $13 billion for land power, and that's about 11% of the entire fiscal budget. But it's a larger percentage of discretionary spending. I think like roughly 50% or something. Okay, so what's my thought on this? This, as an idea, is beautiful. It's beautiful. Could you imagine it? We have less Abrams, we have less this, we have less that, we have less toys, we have less people employed by the armed forces, almost certainly. I mean, you can do some slicing of the cost of the armed forces by having AI take the jobs of some people, but a lot of our budget is salaries. We do this big budget cut, and then we take all this money and we spend it on infrastructure. We take all this money and we spend it on, $400 billion. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. You could start a housing program to increase the amount of public housing. Try to do a crusade against homelessness. You could invest it in green energy and atomic energy and wind power and solar power. You could invest it in any number of programs. Hell, tax credit. But world peace is a nice idea. You know, curing cancer is a nice idea too. There are many, many nice ideas, but there are much less probable ideas. And there's even less very probable ideas, plausible ideas, actionable ideas. So first things first, the Chinese have been increasing their military defense budgets for quite a while. And while they're running into some economic issues, And I could imagine them possibly freezing it temporarily in order to try to address some economic concerns. They very much want to increase the size of their navy. And not only do they want to increase the size of their navy, they want to increase the size of their missile arsenal in order to be able to slam into an American navy in the Pacific. They've been making these investments for a while. And it's not just to challenge the United States, it's to challenge other regional rivals and make territorial claims as well. Because the Chinese are revanchist when it comes to the issue of Taiwan. And so unless Donald Trump is willing to make some pretty groundbreaking concessions on the issue, which I'm sure the Chinese would be very open to hearing, and considering rumors I've heard about what Trump has said behind closed doors about Taiwan and Hong Kong, about basically like, why am I hearing about this? I keep getting calls from Xi. Why do I have high profile diplomats over there in Taiwan? I don't like that. Withdraw them, withdraw them, withdraw them. And it makes me a little nervous. Because it'd be one thing if we were able to decrease military spending to maintain the status quo, and we just both agreed that we had domestic issues that were more important to deal with. That I could get behind. But if we decreased military spending while giving up Taiwan, while asking the Japanese to give up their territory, while asking the Filipinos to give up their land, while asking for international law when it comes to international waters not to be abided by, and for us to concede on freedom of navigation operation. If he just goes in there and he acts how Pete Hegseth started acting when he slipped this out there, slipped that out there about deployments of U.S. troops in Ukraine before negotiations had even started. Not even like, look, we'll give you that we'll give you no U.S. troops in Ukraine if you just give Ukraine back all the kids. Come on, all the kids you kidnapped. Nope. So I don't know if Trump would be willing to make those concessions, because I'm sure that Marco Rubio and others would advise him against it, even if purely just for the issue of we do not have the microchip manufacturing facilities up and running yet. But maybe he would think that'd be another administration's problem, and in the 4 to 5 to 6, 7 years that, we would have cut our military budget and they would have actually probably maybe continued or, still built up towards Taiwan. Who knows how exactly the Chinese would pursue it, if they would be using it as a time to freeze American defense spending while building up into the future, and then it would be the next administration that deals with it. But the point is, getting the Chinese to agree with this is going to be an issue in and of itself. And if you did get the Chinese to agree to this, actually having some method of enforcement is going to be important, because if the Chinese just continue defense spending while we cut defense spending, that's going to be a problem. And you're going to have to resolve some key issues that seem pretty unresolvable unless you want to make massive concessions, or the Chinese have had a real change of heart that Xi has not indicated at all. And then you get over to the Russians, and many of the same issues apply. Massive concessions, not just on Ukraine, by the way. The Russians want to build a sphere of influence that's outside of Ukraine. It's going to probably include possibly nation states like Moldova or Georgia or Armenia, or many of the nation states that Russia touches. Before the invasion of Ukraine, they were making requests about America bringing back its atomic shield from covering nation states like Romania, which are in NATO. So what type of concessions are going to be asked? Because I don't think the Russians are going to like that the line is drawn where it is. They're going to want a sphere of influence. It'd be one thing if you could get them to agree to this right now, even after the war, during the war would be even better, and with no major concessions. But I just find that improbable. I find this whole plan improbable. I also think that in DC, it's a lot easier to make money with the defense companies than against the defense companies. And I think Donald Trump, in his base instincts, is going to go with the path of least resistance here. And that's going to be with the defense companies. And so I really do not know if Donald Trump has any personal commitment to this. But I would lean towards no, strongly. And so for me, I think this is all PR bullshit. But if he does think he can pursue this, and he is maybe even slightly deluded in that idea, or scarily willing to make some pretty big concessions, or secretly gifted up to this point and we have not seen it. We'll just have to wait and see. I'll just have to pray for the latter, but I don't think God will reward me. Trump announces plan to increase military sales to India.